All right, click the links for Odyssey. BitChute, join the subscribe star or become a member of this channel with various other Gab, Telegram sort of things. Good ways to keep in touch. So when the media hires sociopaths, what kind of stories are you going to get? Where are you going to get sociopathic stories? Now, as I've been saying for a few years, the things, one, Hollywood is over. Like for the most part, you can move on from Hollywood. You're not going to get what Hollywood has previously delivered, just mindless popcorn entertainment. It's all going to be propaganda. Two, the media is not the media. The media hasn't been the media in at least 10 years, maybe like 20, 30 years. It's been a slow progression away from trying to at least have the appearance of trying to be. Obviously, they always had a left-wing bias, always, but they tried to have an appearance of. Like they knew they had that bias, but they tried in the past. They tried, and then over the past like 30 years, it just got worse and worse to the point where it was openly be called out in the 90s. I guess 40 years really openly be called out in the 90s, and then it became after 2016. They just took the mask off. They just lost their minds, and they were just falsifying stories. They were setting up stories that they was all about controlling the narrative. And when they made mistakes, the mistakes were only in one direction. It was only against the right, or even how they reported things, the language they used, the verbiage they used to report on. Everyone was a far right, extreme right, alt right, all far right. They use these prefixes to modify the right wing to make it sound, to get more buzzwords in. And then we report on the left wings, they wouldn't do that. Like, oh, that's clear. That's a clear case of bias. Or, if it was pro-life groups, they would report in just the most insanely biased manner. And they do that all the time. And it's like it's in the past 10 years for sure. And then after Trump, they just forget about it. It's all over. So what happened? What happened with this slow descent into cultural Bolshevism? Saul Alinsky at Frankfurt School. These people took George Orwell's 1984 and they were carefully taking notes. We need to make people so terrified that they will say we were always at war with Oceania. But we were never at war with Oceania. You're right. We were always at war with East Asia. That's right. And chocolate rations are going up. Even though technically the number is smaller this month, it doesn't matter. That's still up. So Taylor Lorenz, how this started with the libs of TikTok, sort of. What it started with the teachers, these blue-haired cat lady teachers who only got jobs in teaching so they could propagandize kids, and these cultural Bolsheviks who were controlling the school boards. Weingarten, I think, the teachers' union head. These cultural Bolsheviks who were just, straight out of the Frankfurt School, straight out of critical theory and Saul Alinsky, they're just taking their notes to go, if we can control the kids and propagandize the kids into Bolshevism or globalism from, 5 to 15, we got the kids, or you got most of them. And so they knew that you had to control key nodes in infrastructures, which is, schools, media, that kind of thing. So they pushed these teachers to go in and they control the educational materials. It's like, man, they got them lock, stock, and barrel. And, I know some states, DeSantis in Florida, some states are trying to, North Dakota is trying to push back against this. There's no way. This is a losing fight in the sense that it's just too many battlegrounds in the schools to try to put out. If there's any way you can homeschool or set up micro schools, that's the only way to make base conservative kids a return to, typical, God, country, and whatever the standard family values of the 1950s that built strong families and strong kids and strong nations. It's got to be through homeschools or micro homeschools. To try to fight the schools, you just couldn't do it because almost all the teachers are these blue-haired whack job liberals. You do have to take the power out of the schools, which you could do with taking the funding out of schools. I mean, there's lots you could do, but if you homeschooled kids, like if there's a huge push to homeschool in micro conservative schools or Christian national schools or something, you would change the vibe of the nation within 20 years. It would be a much different nation, a much better nation. You wouldn't have people. This push the stuff they're doing to kids on stage now that you're seeing with all the, the story hour type of stuff. It's getting pretty weird. In homeschools, we take all that out. But, they set up the country, thanks Hart-Celler Act, 1965, to force the women into the workplace. Now we're free to work. No, now you have to work to support the family. And there's other things relating to that shall not be discussed on YouTube. Free to work? No, you have to work. So that means your kids have to go to the government schools to get propagandized. But, and then your property taxes go to pay for those schools. Instead of like, okay, why don't we just end those taxes and we'll set up a small micro school in some dude's living room, and you can have it live streamed with technology now to the families on so they could check in on their kids. And somebody wants to teach the kids, some mom or some dad wants to teach the kids, you could teach like a dozen kids in your living room, and instead of 8 hours, it's like you could teach the kids the equivalent without the distractions in like 5 or 6 hours, because there just aren't the distractions that a regular school brings, because you're not teaching the kids about pronouns and trans drag other kin story hour or BLM or all this kind of like communist Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King nonsense. It's like, that's all nonsense. That's all communist propaganda, and we've accepted it because the propaganda has been so deep for so long. Anyway, so that's the answer. It's like DeSantis was trying to fight. Oh, so what happened was that the blue-haired weirdos in school were just doing these insane TikTok videos talking about how they're propagandizing the kids and this cultural Marxism, Bolshevism. And then they were publishing those videos on this website, TikTok, which is public for everyone to see. So Libs of TikTok is a Twitter account. They have a Telegram account. It's this lady who later got doxxed by this lady, Taylor Lorenz, who I think is got some sociopathic tendencies. I mean, a lot of people in media are kind of on that sociopathic scale, and she's just one of them, just insane. Like, I think left-wing people are kind of looking at her and going like, so you're showing up at people's houses, doxing people, and then when other people show up at your house and your family's house doxing you, you don't understand why they're doing that. Like, she legitimately didn't understand why people were showing up at her family's house when she, like, literally a week before had shown up at the Libs of TikTok's family's house and had doxed her name in the public. Like, she just doesn't get it because she's insane. Anyway, so Libs of TikTok is republishing those videos on Twitter and getting a huge following to the point where even Elon Musk is interacting with her, and it's all over YouTube, it's all over social media, and parents are kind of finally seeing what is going on with the teachers, and they realize, like I said, you're not going to fight that. DeSantis is doing a no grooming bill in Florida. That's one state and some counties, and a lot of teachers are just going to ignore it. How many tens of thousands of teachers there are? You're going to lose that battle to try to put based teachers in, because it comes from the top down. The teachers union Weingarten is just a super woke Bolshevik. You'd have to replace everybody, and there's no system in power to do that, to fight globalism, this creeping Bolshevism. It's impossible. The only way you can do it is, one, take the money out of the system, stop paying the taxes to fund these schools, and two, do homeschools. Or if you don't have a parent who can stay home, you get like set up micro schools, which would be a better option. Like, just take some teaching the kids is not rocket science to tutor and to teach. It's like you just have to know the material ahead of the kids. It's not an insane level of knowledge. Like, literally, I've never taught before, but you can get like a dozen parents together. Like, listen, we'll pay you the equivalent of whatever you were doing before. You get to stay home with the kids, teach in your living room, and we'll pay you whatever you're making on the mainstream. It's like, now you've got this new skill set teaching kids, and we're going to raise a bunch of great kids doing this. It's like, I never taught before. Yeah, you've never done a lot of things before, but it's not that hard. It's like, you just have to start. A lot of stuff you just have to start doing. It's like, well, where's the instruction manual? Just start doing it, and you can write the instruction manual yourself as you go along. It's like that with a lot of stuff. It doesn't matter anything. So that's the answer, even though it's kind of a big hurdle, like, oh, I'm responsible for 12 kids. Yeah, there's really no other option. Sometimes you just have to do what you have to do, set up these kind of small neighborhood schools. And again, it's not an 8-hour thing. It's just you can do it not half the time, but you can probably do it in 3/4 of the time, because you're just leaving out all this Bolshevik propaganda. Anyway, so you got this lady, Taylor Lorenz, who's acting like a sociopath for Washington Post, where even the point of Washington Post is kind of looking at her funny. She's issuing retractions, and they're correcting stories, but the modern media does now is they correct stories, but they don't tell you what they corrected. And really, here's how you should do it if you're a media company and you want to appear fair and impartial and above board and honest. You go, listen, here's this story that we released. Here's the archive link to it. This is the original story. It's archived. Now, these are the corrections we issued, and this is the archive to the corrections. You can see where we went wrong. We're not trying to hide anything. This is what we did, and we made a mistake, and we're moving forward, but we're not trying to cover it up. The mainstream media doesn't do that. They just issue, because the mainstream media is digital now, so they just do this 1984 stuff where they issue these corrections digitally, and you never really know what happened. That's Lugan Press. That's yellow journalism. That's very, very shady material stuff. It's like, yeah, that's the mainstream media now. I say the media is over. The media's been over for 20 years. That's the media now. Anyway, but even her mistakes and her bias got so egregious. So she's reporting on various stories, even to the point where she was talking about that umbrella guy and some Johnny Depp stuff, and she was saying she contacted them, and all these people that she said she contacted for the story chime in on Twitter and go, no, you didn't. We searched our emails. I mean, you could, if you want to do a forensic audit of the emails, you probably could approve it. But they didn't even bother going that route. They just issued a retraction and said, oh, yeah, we actually didn't contact these people, but we said we did, but we actually didn't. Okay, so that's a lie. You lied to misframe the story. Anyway, there's only so many lies that a reporter can do before the reporter loses credibility, which she never had. But then the newspaper loses credibility because you're continuing to employ somebody. So finally, she gets demoted to a point where people have to review her work before it goes out there. But it's like, that's not, reporters are independent. You shouldn't even hire somebody if that has to happen. I mean, in the beginning that happens to get them out the door. But at that point, you should just let them go and let them go off independent journalism for a while, and they can do like opinion pieces is what they really want to do, not actual reporting, because it's like you're just a propagandist and you make the newspaper look insane. Anyway, so after this series of lying and doxing and just acting like a sociopath, finally she gets demoted to a, I don't know, like a tech position or something, which still not enough. I mean, you have somebody who's taking part in not reporting the news, but it's just simply pushing propaganda, and you don't fire them. You got to look at Washington Post and go, oh, so Washington Post is just like the Inquirer now. No, was it the truth dies in darkness or sunlight or something, whatever their quote is. Like, yeah, nobody believes you anymore. Like all the media across the board. It's like nobody believes in media anymore. That's why they're going to alt media. Because it might be biased to the right, but the mainstream media is so far left that it's all but useless, other than to tell you like what is not true is what they're saying is true. Is like, the narrative they want to push in the mainstream media, but you also know that they're lying. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Check me out on Subscribe Star. It is a video hosting platform without the censorship, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.